Hello, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Overpowering Emotions, where I talk all things big emotions, emotion regulation. As we start the new year, I'm actually pretty excited to launch the first episode of the new journey of resilience. I'm always going to be focusing on resilience and emotion regulation, and I'm going to be looking now into very specific skills. I find that in my mind, everything that I'm giving you in my episodes are skills and are strategies. But I have really noticed over the past year, a lot of people have struggled putting things into application. And so I'm going to try to break things down. That might mean I'm extending how much I talk about certain things, trying to give very concrete examples of how we can how this can all play out in everyday life, whether it's at home, if it's in a classroom, whatever environment that you're in. And I'm going to be focusing on emotional intelligence first. This is such a critical piece in raising resilient, successful kids. And so it's really about laying that groundwork, making sure we're all on the same page, because I think we jump ahead far too much. And you'll be looking, I'm going to be talking about this ladder of skills that we need to build just with emotional intelligence. And we expect kids to be able to regulate their emotions right away, but we're missing these important steps that take time to make sure that they can master each of those things. And this is really important too, because in everyday life, we're focusing on those wrong things as adults, right? So let's say you've got two kids. The two kids, they could be siblings, they could be classmates if you're a teacher, but let's just say there's two kids and they go to grab the same toy and then they start yelling, I had it first. I find in my house, it's a toy that they haven't played with in like a year. I'm ready to throw it away. But the minute they see one kid go for it, all of a sudden it's the best toy in the universe. Anyways, all of this to say, they start screaming, I had this first. As the adult, we step in, right? Now all of a sudden the toy breaks, let's say, or in their fighting, they knock over a glass and break a glass of water or something. And now the kids are blaming each other. So I'm sure we have encountered something similar, some sort of scenario in this regard. Our solution as the adult is to focus on the behavior. We might tell kids to apologize. They got to share. Maybe we'll take the toy away altogether, right? We're focusing on the behavior. That might work in the immediate moment, probably not. But either way, we're missing a crucial opportunity here to teach what the most important learning opportunity is. It's not about sharing, it's about teaching emotional intelligence, right? Helping kids manage their feelings, preventing those future conflicts in the future, because now we're going to give them tools to cope with frustration or disappointment or whatever difficult emotion comes up. And so that's where we need to go. It's not about behavior management, it's about emotion management because emotions drive behavior. So that's really where we need to focus. And so if we're focusing on the behavior, we're missing out on all of these opportunities. And I will say our kids don't have a lot of opportunities. There's lots of opportunities that do present themselves, but we're robbing them of these opportunities. So, at a very basic level, when we're looking at emotional intelligence or EI, as I might talk about it, it's the ability to be able to recognize, understand, reason with, and ultimately manage our own emotions. Now, it's just not our own emotions, it's also being able to perceive and influence other people's emotions too. So there's these two levels, the intrapersonal, the self-awareness, the self-regulation of emotion, and interpersonal, where we're recognizing and responding to other people's emotions. So it's more than just being nice. It's more than just being emotionally aware. It's a set of skills that really guide how we respond to stressful situations, how we relate to other people, how we make decisions. We're also continuously co-regulating our emotions in our interactions, and we're influencing each other even in really subtle ways. So just thinking about, maybe someone is in a great mood and you come in and you've got a headache and you're a little bit snippy. That could put them on edge, right? Even though we came in with two different states, one usually will predominate the other. It can go the other way, but it's usually easier to influence those negative emotions. Really looking at the ability model. So as a framework for understanding emotional intelligence, looking at the ability model, that EI. It's a set of mental abilities related to being able to process and use emotional information. So, emotional intelligence, I think it's important for us to also think about. It is considered a true form of intelligence. Just like the traditional IQ, cognitive intelligence, it is a form of intelligence. So I think that is important to also think about. We focus so much on developing our kids' cognitive abilities from a very young age. We got to look at this EI. So this ability model, it divides EI into four key branches. So first is being able to perceive emotions. That's sort of the foundational skill of EI. It's the bottom of the ladder. So it is the ability to recognize emotions in myself and in other people. And that's through facial expressions, through tone of voice, body language, all of those sort of nonverbals. Also, accurately detecting emotional cues in the environment, right? Looking at the social setting, being able to differentiate between honest and false emotional expressions too. So, for example, if they notice that their friend looks upset, but their friend says, "No, I'm fine," right? That's requiring them to perceive those subtle emotional cues. And that's important because misinterpreting emotions, that really leads us to misunderstanding, miscommunication, conflict. So having high perception skills, that really enhances empathy and social awareness. So that's a key piece. Okay. The next step up is facilitating thought with emotion. So that involves using emotions to guide our thinking and our problem solving. We can prioritize emotions to enhance our reasoning. We can leverage emotional states to foster creativity and decision making and problem solving and all of those types of things. So it's really affecting sort of our cognitive processes. We can shift our emotional perspective to see challenges from different angles, different situations. So, for example, feeling calm and focused, that's probably a good state to be in to make a rational decision. While excitement, that can really inspire innovative, creative ideas. This is really important because emotions, they act as signals, right? They're signals guiding where we need to focus our attention. So pleasant emotions, as we'll call them, that really enhances creativity. Moderate stress can sharpen our focus. So those are different things that we can start thinking about. Now, the next branch or, ladder up is looking at understanding emotions. So that's about recognizing maybe some of the triggers and the consequences of different emotions, knowing how emotions evolve over time, how frustration might grow into anger, for example, being able to identify some of those complex emotional states, like feeling bittersweet or maybe feeling conflicted. That's one that I'm often like, I'm torn, I'm really conflicted. My family makes fun of me for feeling conflicted all the time. So, maybe a student feels nervous before a presentation and they're understanding that anxiety stems from the fear of judgment. I'm going to go in front of all my peers who might judge me. So how do I manage that? And that's going to be very different than anxiety from I didn't do my homework, right? And so now I need to focus on getting this stuff done. So this really matters because when we're understanding our emotional triggers, kids can respond more thoughtfully instead of responding impulsively. And that also helps with empathizing other people's experiences and for us to be able to provide appropriate support depending on what's going on for them as well. And finally, that last branch is managing emotions, right? That's the most advanced skill in EI. It's the ability to regulate our emotional responses, being able to adapt to a situation, staying in control when things are really stressful, influencing our emotional states, and maybe influencing other people's emotions too, right? So maybe we can calm a friend who's in distress, knowing when to express our emotions, when we should maybe hold back our emotions. So, maybe, someone with really strong abilities to regulate their emotions, they can remain calm during a heated argument. Or maybe they can cheer up a friend who is upset, right? So those are examples of someone who has strong emotional management and can influence other people's emotions too. And that's really important for us as adults because we need to be able to create positive environments and model resilience and all of these types of things too. Now, effective emotion regulation, it improves relationships, it improves behaviors, it boosts mental health. We get along better with these kids, right? It's a more peaceful environment. And so that's why we really want to focus on these things. And like I said, these skills develop sequentially. So it starts with that perceiving emotions and advancing to being able to manage them. So each of these branches, they build upon each other. If you can't perceive emotions accurately, it's going to be really hard for you to manage them, right? And if you don't understand your emotions, that regulation becomes more challenging. So it's like that ladder. Each step supports the next. And that's why I'm going to spend so much time on some of these lower rungs and why I have spent so much time on lower rungs. These aren't things that new things that I've talked about. Just because adults always want to jump right ahead to kids regulating their emotions and keeping their cool. But if they don't have these lower rungs on the ladder, and I mean, not just knowing them, practicing them, mastering them, it's going to be impossible to actually regulate their emotions. And so we really do need to focus a little bit of time. So we start by recognizing emotions in kids. We are the co-regulators. So we have to recognize our own emotions and kids' emotions, and we're creating a supportive environment. Understanding some of those emotional triggers, we can help maybe de-escalate conflicts, at least now until they're able to manage those emotions. Of course, we have to model how to handle our own emotions, right? Because handling our own emotions is going to influence kids' behavior and their emotional growth as well. We're going to encourage kids to name their emotions. That builds emotional awareness. And don't worry, we'll break that all down. We need to teach them how to think and pause before they're reacting. That's going to foster some of that emotion regulation. Okay, so those are the skills that we're working towards. Now, as part of this foundation, it's important to really understand what's going on. So I want to identify how to recognize kids who might have strong emotional intelligence versus they've got a lot of growth, some edges to work on here with that emotional intelligence when we're looking at kids. Because a big part of fostering emotional intelligence is understanding where they're at currently and what are some of those areas that might need a little bit more development. So, signs of strong emotional intelligence, well, they usually can accurately recognize and name their emotions. They can express how they feel without becoming overwhelmed or without shutting down or freaking out. If a child can say, I feel frustrated right now because I didn't understand the homework, or if they say, I'm feeling a little nervous right now about this test, I mean, that's a great sign of emotional awareness. So, that's a key piece. Children with high EI also show empathy towards others. They notice when someone's upset and they're able to respond with kindness, right? So if they see a peer is crying, they might offer comfort. They might ask, "Hey, are you okay?" These are kids who often consider other people's perspectives in a conflict, right? And they're trying to negotiate and resolve problems collaboratively. We don't see a lot of that anymore, unfortunately. Kids with good EI, they're able to manage their own emotions. I mean, that's a great indicator, even in really challenging situations. It doesn't mean that they never get upset, of course not, but they can recover quickly, right? If they feel angry, they might take a deep breath. They might walk away, take some time instead of lashing out. When something doesn't go their way, they're able to adapt and move forward. And I'm not talking about the kids who are running away and withdrawing either, right? It really is. I just need a break. I'll be back in a second, and then they can move on, right? And that's a key piece. They usually have strong social skills. They can navigate some of those social conflicts and social interactions pretty smoothly. They know how to take turns. They know how to listen actively. They know how to work well in groups. If there is a conflict, they know how to resolve some of those conflicts by talking about it, using their words. They're not aggressing, they're not avoiding. They're actually able to talk about it and build some of those, connections and relationships. These kids also have strong resilience and self-motivation. So we can see this if they're persisting with tasks, even if they're challenging, right? They have confidence that they can figure it out. Even if they don't know it now, they know that with practice they're going to figure it out. When they face a challenge, they believe, hey, I know that I'm going to figure it out. They believe in their capacity, right? They're not just giving up immediately. So for these kids with high EI, we really want to continue fostering growth. We're going to encourage deeper emotional reflection. We're going to offer lots of opportunities to build leadership and mentoring skills. All of the strategies I work on are still going to be important for them. We just want to keep that momentum going. We just might another layer. So you're going to see how I'm going to be talking about different emotions, but maybe we're challenging them to articulate really complex feelings and handling more complex situations. Okay, so it's just adapting so we can build those skills for long-term sort of success. Now, kiddos with poor emotional intelligence, they might struggle to identify or articulate their emotions. They might just say, I don't know, if you ask them how they feel, or maybe they react in really extreme ways without understanding why. And so we're seeing these emotional outbursts, or those are the kids who are running away and withdrawing. They tend to seem like they have less empathy. It's really, they might even seem indifferent to other people's feelings. And it could be because they have trouble recognizing when someone's upset, or they don't know how to respond in a sensitive way. And so they might, ignore a friend who's in distress. Maybe they're not showing any remorse if they've hurt somebody else's feelings. Right. So those are a couple of examples. They often have frequent emotional meltdowns, anger outbursts. Maybe they're shutting down under stress. Those are all indicators of poor emotional regulation. They just have a hard time calming themselves. They don't know how to use coping strategies, right? And it takes them a long time to calm down and have a hard time adapting. They also have a lot of social difficulties, difficulty in friendships and in social groups. They might interrupt conversations. They might have trouble sharing. They might respond to physical, responses when there's conflicts and hitting and grabbing rather than using their words. And so being able to make friends and keep friends, that might be a challenge. Emotionally underdeveloped kids tend to give up quickly, right? As soon as they're faced with the challenge or things, they just perceive it as becoming too hard, they give up. They might avoid challenges out of fear of failure. Maybe they just have a lot of self-doubt for whatever reason, right? They are running away. So for these kids, we want to start with basics. We're focusing on building their emotional vocabulary, which I will be getting into, but helping them label their emotions on a very simple level. And I'll be breaking that down into two things that we could be focusing on. We are definitely going to be modeling a lot more emotional regulation and doing a lot more co-regulation with these kids. We're going to be practicing a lot of empathy with them. Maybe we're giving them mentorship opportunities where they're the leader over a younger child. Maybe they're doing some role playing with empathy and guiding them through different social interactions where they can show sensitivity and patience, right? So we can start being on the lookout for where kids fall. Obviously, those kiddos with lower EI are going to need more support. But why is this important? Well, we know that EI is predictor of long-term success, even more than IQ, even more than that cognitive intelligence. EI plays a pivotal role in every domain, everything from academics performance to leadership to mental health, physical health. They can handle challenges better, they form stronger relationships. They just have an overall better well-being than kiddos with lower EI. They're more likely to stay motivated, right? To persist with things, to manage conflict constructively, to be able to navigate whatever life throws them very effectively. EI really shapes how kids approach life and all that life throws at all the ups and downs. So it's really the foundation of resilience, and that's why I'm starting there. It's critical to thriving in all domains of life. And in today's fast-paced digital world, digitally connected world, that emotional intelligence is more important than ever before because, we know that our Gen Zs and Gen Alphas, or Jean Twenge calls them our Gen Is, like iPhones, kids who are born in the digital world, they face these really unique challenges. The rise of social media, there's an increased academic pressure. There's a shifting of these social dynamics. All of this means that they need to have really strong emotional skills to stay grounded. Kids and teens who develop EI early are way better equipped to manage the constant stream of online information. They're able to resist some of the peer pressure. They can form meaningful relationships despite whatever's going on online. And we know that EI, it really fosters empathy and cooperation. And that's something we need more of in the world. But those skills, they're important to obviously do well in school, in life beyond, right? Especially when they need to work in teams and adapt in group dynamics. So these are things, I mean, just foundational things that we need to think about. Now, modeling EI is one of the first things that we can do, right? The best way we can teach it is really by modeling it because kids learn by watching us, watching the adults around them manage emotions, respond to difficulties. And from a very young age, I mean, I do have traffic issues where I get upset in traffic. I have a little bit of road rage. I try to avoid driving at all because it's bad. But I remember my daughter, one of her first words ever was dude. And in that inflection, because driving, I'd get so angry. And that's usually what I yelled was dude, right? And so you could see, and now she's driving and I can see her. She uses a little bit more colorful language than I do, but from a very young age, she didn't even know what was going on. She could barely see what was going on in the world around her, but she could see that we're in the car and I'm getting frustrated. So they really do, look at how we respond to different situations. And so we really need to show them what it looks like to handle frustration calmly, to admit to our mistakes, to express empathy and show empathy towards other people. So this is where really we need to start. We have no hope in ever teaching kids emotional intelligence if we don't have the skills ourselves. So this is where we start. I always start with the adults in every domain, anything that I work on, it starts with the adults. So we have to start checking in with how we're feeling regularly in front of our kids. And these are things that we're going to be asking them to do, but we have to start it first. We're not ignoring them. Use those everyday situations to label and express your emotions. Don't just say you're fine. Don't just say you're tired. Get really specific. Say, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed right now, but you know what? I'm going to go for a walk around the block and I'm going to figure it out. I'll be back in 5 minutes. When we do this, we're normalizing emotional expression, which is so important because I don't think a lot of people feel safe expressing their emotions, especially kids, because we're always telling them just it's not a big deal. Just suck it up, right? We might not say suck it up, but we're saying it's not a big deal. There's nothing to worry about. Go calm down, go relax, right? We want to really normalize that emotional expression in using our words. We want to teach resilience. We're breaking unhealthy cycles of suppression and trying to cover it all up that everything's okay. And we're fostering that open communication. So we want to make sure we're doing that. We want to acknowledge our mistakes. Like I said, if you do lose your temper, or if you make a mistake, talk about it. Hey, I was really frustrated earlier and I shouldn't have reacted that way. I'm so sorry. Let's try to solve this together. How can we end the night on a great night? Or how can we end the rest of this period still liking each other before you go to your next period, right? We want to make sure we're talking about that. Validation, active listening, showing that we value kids and value their emotions by listening, reflecting back what they say. Wow, I can tell you're really upset because you felt left out. We're not judging, we're not fixing, we're not telling them to calm down or that it's not a big deal or that they're going to be fine, right? That's shutting down any chance of them ever wanting to express their emotions again. But even trying to fix and make them feel better is a problem because they're not going to learn ever to manage their own emotions. So instead of solving their emotional discomfort, we got to reflect. I hear you. I can see why you feel that way. That makes sense. And they need to feel heard. I've talked a lot about all of those types of things, right? We suppress too much our own self, right? So there's a lot of work where we need to work on. And there's a lot of places where they're not feeling safe because we're suppressing all the time. Even in the psychology world, I remember one time, in front of a colleague where I was getting a little bit emotional because I was feeling overwhelmed. There was a lot on my plate. And it blows my mind because this was a fellow psychologist who should understand these things and a psychologist who worked in trauma, which was even more mind-boggling. But this person retaliated, right? And it became a toxic workplace, where nobody felt like they could open up about anything. And I wasn't saying anything inappropriate. I wasn't laying out trauma and, anything inappropriate. I was just literally, I was getting teary-eyed and saying, I'm feeling really overwhelmed. I've got a lot on my plate and I'm just working towards trying to figure out, manage my schedule, right? So I was modeling some good, well, I thought maybe some good emotional intelligence, expressing how I was feeling, and they retaliated. So, and I see this all the time, right? We really need to make sure we're starting early to normalize all of these feelings and these conversations about our feelings so that they feel safe. Because if we're suppressing and we don't feel safe enough, that's going to lead to anxiety, it's going to lead to depression, it's going to lead to burnout later on in life. Or even now, just a lot of behaviors. So we need to make sure that we're creating that safe place. I'm an adult, I can suck it up. It's fine. But, with kids, it's really hard. So we want to make sure we have those safe environments. And of course, regulating our own emotions. Pause before reacting to when you're upset or to stress. Narrate your thought process. I'm feeling angry. I'm going to take a moment before I respond. Wow, interesting choice, kiddo. I'm going to take a moment. I'm feeling my blood rising right now, boiling. So I'm going to take a moment so I can respond in a helpful way. I will be back in a few minutes. Right? We need to be able to do that. We can't expect our kids to be able to regulate their emotions if we cannot say the words and take that break and do these things ourselves. So we have to develop our own skills. We have to stay calm during conflicts. We have to model those effective regulation strategies. If we're feeling overwhelmed or frustrated, that's okay. But we got to be able to model how we're managing them because otherwise those emotions are going to transfer back onto the kids, right? So it starts with us. So you can also, I didn't talk about this, which is mind-boggling because I'm all about those physiological pieces as well. Identifying our physiological changes, our heart rate, our tense shoulders, right? Take a moment to pause, interpret what's going on in the body, and then we can look at getting out of our old habits, our old emotional spirals, thinking about what's the most ideal response in this situation. What kind of parent do I want to be? Or what kind of teacher or psychologist or whatever your role is? What kind of person do I want to be in this moment? In my reaction to this situation or with this person, and then choose the best strategy to keep your emotions in check and the best response to the situation. So if we go back to that broken toy scenario or the knocked over glass scenario, you might feel frustration rising, right? But pause. Okay, count to 5. Remember that your role, you want to be that compassionate, patient adult. I want to be able to respond calmly, not impulsively. You're not going to feel calm and compassionate, right? But we're going to model, okay, I'm feeling frustrated too, but this is what I'm going to do. And I can see you guys are frustrated. What are you going to do? You can join me if you'd like. What are other options? So we want to model those skills. And then kids will naturally pick up on them. And that's going to reinforce their emotional awareness over their own behavior. So once we have the skills, obviously, beyond modeling, we're going to have to actively teach the emotional intelligence. And that's what I'm going to be going into over the next few weeks. I just wanted to lay down that foundation, but I wanted to give you a few ideas just to get the ball rolling anyways. But really, truly look at your own patterns and how you can respond and model things a little bit differently. But you could do things like emotion labeling games to help younger kids, maybe older kids too, but recognizing names. You can use, books or movies or real life experiences where they can name different emotions. How do you think that character is feeling? What makes you think that? What do you think happened for them to feel that? For older kids and teens, maybe you're encouraging journaling. I'm going to be talking a lot about journaling, about different daily experiences and how different situations might have made them feel. So we're just promoting that emotional awareness and that self-reflection. And again, I'm always talking about the importance of gratitude. And so I just want to slip that in here because it's really important. Gratitude truly is the best way to counteract any of those negative, I don't like positive negative, but those unpleasant feelings. Science has consistently shown us time and time again that daily gratitude practice, it improves mood, it reduces stress, it boosts performance, and on and on and on it goes, all of the benefits. And so starting a gratitude ritual now is so important, so beneficial to increase empathy, to increase emotional regulation right from the get-go. We don't even have to do anything else to already get some of those benefits. So looking at how can you have rituals, maybe asking children name up to 3 things that they were grateful for in that day, right? Create a ritual around it, like at dinner or bedtime or at the end of the school day. When conflicts arise, just making sure we're guiding kids through problem solving. We're not jumping into solutions ourselves. We're asking them, how do you think you can fix this or we can fix this? What do we need to try next time or what do we need to do next? So all of those things are just a few ideas that you can start encouraging kids to build a little bit more, foundational pieces for their skills. But I will be getting into specifically some of those skills because the goal for this year really is to steadily build the emotional intelligence and resilience. I mean, emotional intelligence is one piece of this that I'm focusing on now, but it's building it one small step at a time, right? So each episode, I'm going to break down those specific skills and offer practical tips to sort of reinforce what you're learning. But I encourage you to start simple. Just choose a couple of strategies to try this week, starting for sure with modeling and seeing how kids are responding to that. Those skills are definitely going to take time, but if you keep planting these and nurturing these seeds, they will grow, and it starts with us. Any strategies that you have, I'd love to hear about what you are doing and what's working for you. Share your experiences. That's great. And if there's particular skills that you'd like to work on, whether they're EI skills or anything else that you'd like me to focus on in upcoming episodes, definitely reach out. So I will leave it there for today. There's lots to think about and lots for me to go into in the coming weeks. But we really, like I said, if we don't have, our own capacity to regulate emotions, we just can't expect kids to. So until next time, take care, help those kiddos be bold and courageous, and I will see you then.